So I've hardly seen you this month, but one thing that we did do together was we went to the Greater Glider evening where we heard some fabulous talks, especially
Yes.
one from Dr. Anna Grassinen
Yes.
about greater gliders up here.
Well, about hollows, I listened to it again, and it really was very in-depth about the kind of choosiness of different species for different hollows, and
Yeah,
greater gliders requiring particularly deep
that's right.
hollows.
Yeah, and we learnt that for wildlife to flourish, you need to have 30 hollows of different shapes and sizes per hectare.
Yeah. It's an ask, isn't it?
It
It's an
certainly
ask.
is.
We are losing trees all the time. And even though we're planting them as fast as we can go, a tree doesn't really develop hollows until it's about 150 years old.
That's right, and some of the deeper ones that the bigger animals need, she said it can take 300 years.
I like that idea now. We're making some artificial hollows for these animals. And I really like the idea of going with one that would become a hollow, but they were drilling it. So
yeah.
they were speeding up the evolutionary process by just drilling into the area to make it a good size for the right
with
animal.
a tool that was invented called the hollow hog.
The hollow hog.
Yeah.
I thought that was a misprint. I thought it was the hollow log. So that explains why it said hog. Yes. Anyhow,
I hope I'm right.
How many people know that greater gliders live here in the Southern Highlands? How many people know what a greater glider is?
Yeah, we
Sounds
should
sort of
actually-
amazing.
We should try and get through this without using the word cute, because it's just the word that comes
just
to mind
used it.
every So to recap, we talked about greater gliders a month ago, but now we actually know a thing or two about them. But for those who didn't hear a month ago, these are an Australian native mammal who are about the size of a small cat. They have the most magnificent tail, which can be up to 1 metre long. They have these beautiful ears, which are very, very furry and gorgeous. And they have what they call a patagium. Is that how you pronounce it? Which goes from the elbow of the animal to their ankle so that they can glide. And they spend basically their entire lives right up in the top of the canopy eating eucalypt leaves. And they glide from tree to tree, but they rarely come to the ground because they're actually very awkward on the ground. And I read that the numbers of the population were diminishing over time, but that we lost something like 80 to 85% of them just because of the 2019-2020 fires.
We are at a really critical point right now, and in a critical place here in the Southern Highlands, where we still have animals of this calibre, and yet we are so close to Sydney and so close to Canberra, and we are so much development around us. And these animals need to move. So we're really at a crunch point now where we have to work very, very hard to save these animals in our highlands.
So we learnt that we have greater gliders up on the Jib and we have them on Gibbergunya. And we saw one out in Mittagong out the back of Lake Alex.
Mount Alexandra. That's where we saw one.
Yep.
We went with the spotlighters, and what a cutie. Oh, not allowed to say that. Not allowed to say that.
Gotcha.
But he got a white face.
Yes.
Little white face and dark body, and I couldn't see the tail.
No, I don't think there was a bit of it, but not a lot.
It was tricky to see. But what struck me last month, I think I said that they had furry ears, and then I thought, I wonder if everyone thinks they got furry ears inside and outside their ears. Obviously, they're only furry on the outside. But what I really noticed this time looking at this greater glider was the sort of corrugations of skin on the inside of the big ears.
You could see better than I could.
Oh, yeah, I could see really well. I had binoculars, and I thought those corrugations, they reminded me of some of the corrugations I've seen in the ears of some of the bigger bats. And I think it's
we're really getting into it now.
Well, I just think it's about being able to pick up very, very precise sounds, maybe small sounds, and the area from which they come, the left, the right, the top, above you, below you. It's like a very good hearing system, I think they've got, you know?
I imagine you're right.
Yeah, so I was dead impressed with them.
And
the ears.
I was just impressed with the whole night walk experience. I've done a few spotlighting tours in my time, and this one was by far the best, in part because it was really well organised and people had been advised not to use flash photography and to keep their torches off the animals. I've read and heard a number of times that nocturnal animals have very sensitive eyes and that bright lights really do them harm, and actually in some cases render them temporarily blind, so they're vulnerable to predators at that time. And so when I've done spotlighting walks, it's really kind of horrified me how many lights and how many flashes go off on these poor creatures.
I want to do some research about infrared, because I think if you use an infrared, maybe that's okay.
I think so, because Monica, one of the leaders, she had the fantastic infrared binos that she could put up and look at the animal, and then that fed back to an iPad that we could all have a look at.
Yeah, that was extraordinary. I'd never seen that technology.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
So you could look on the computer and see the animal that was way up in the canopy in the in night time.
Yeah, and seemingly without doing him or her any harm. Yeah. It was
the other thing
great.
that struck me about that spotlighting tour, we didn't just see the glider, we saw several sugar gliders. And what struck me was the glider didn't do anything, the greater glider.
No.
But the sugar gliders were zipping around like crazy. And it suddenly occurred to me, this is all to do with their diet.
Oh, right.
Because the greater glider is a bit like a koala. It eats gum leaves, which with their toxicity and everything really slows you down.
All right.
Whereas the sugar gliders eat nectar and sugary gum.
Oh, so
exudate. So they're speeding up. They're on a sugar hit all the time, and they're going yang yang yang. yang.
They certainly were the ones that we saw, and they were even zipping around on the ground.
I know, which is unusual.
It was just like, I just thought this was a wonderland.
And we only went for 100 metres.
Yes, and there was so much stuff out there.
Much
it was
stuff.
wonderful, and it's a pity that people don't get out at night.
Yes,
spotlighting more often, because there's all this shit
it's a
going down out there.
whole different world, isn't it?
It is.
This is when all our animals actually come out.
Yeah, that's right. So it was just a great night, and apparently there were lots of people who wanted to book for that spotlighting tour. We were some of the lucky ones, but they will be doing some more again come spring. And, I highly recommend it. It was wonderful.
Yes, I would too. It did book out quite quickly. Not surprisingly, it was free.
Yes.
It was free. You don't get shows like that very often for nothing.
No, that's right.